Have you ever stopped to think that the color of a road or the shine on a skyscraper could be a matter of life and death? Well, today we're diving into this really fascinating new design framework called color-form ecology. It's proposing a radical new way to see and build our cities, basically through the eyes of the animals living right alongside us.
Okay, so to get into this, let's start with a kind of weird puzzle. A recent study, it actually won an Ig Nobel Prize, confirmed that if you paint zebra-like stripes on a cow, it gets bitten by flies way less. Sounds like a random piece of trivia, right? But the reason it works, well, that's incredibly important.
Because the science behind why those stripes work, it pulls back the curtain on this massive, invisible flaw in how we design pretty much everything around us. It's a flaw that has accidentally turned our modern world into a minefield for countless creatures. And that gets us to the heart of the problem, our own deadly designs. You see, we've built a world for human eyes, and we've been completely oblivious to the dangerous signals we're sending out to wildlife. The scale of this is just staggering. Look at this number. In the US alone, it's estimated that up to 1 billion birds die every single year from flying into windows. They just don't see the glass. But the problem is so much deeper than just birds and windows. This leads to a phenomenon we can call the deadly water mirage. So here's the deal. Dark, shiny surfaces. Think about black asphalt roads, glass buildings, even oil slicks. They reflect light in a very specific way. And to insects that use polarized light to find water, these surfaces look exactly like a perfect pond. So they're drawn to our roads and buildings trying to lay their eggs, only to get trapped or killed. So to fix all this, we basically need to learn to speak a new optical language. We have to completely rethink what color and pattern are even for in our cities. This is a huge paradigm shift. For decades, right, we've treated color and form as just decoration, pure aesthetics. This new way of seeing says, nope, that's all wrong. It treats them as functional infrastructure, an active landscape that can create invisible guardrails and even highways for wildlife. And this brings us right to the main idea, color-form ecology. It's a unified design framework. The key thing to get is that it's not just about color, and it's not just about shape. It's about how the combination of color, pattern, and texture can be used to guide animals, steering them away from those deadly traps and towards safe zones. So what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, the great thing is this framework gives us a whole toolkit of practical, ready-to-test solutions. Let's check some of them out. First off, our roads. Instead of that deadly, shiny blacktop, we could use anti-glare asphalt. Think of it like a matte finish with a microtexture that just scrambles those reflections that mimic water. We can also add cooling dots, basically just white dots along the edges, which lower the temperature and help insects follow natural scent trails instead of these dangerous optical traps. We can also create safe passages right through the air. For flying insects like bees, we can install UV sky bridges. These are thin cables overhead that have UV reflective fibers, which a lot of insects can see. It creates an invisible highway, guiding them safely over traffic. Or we could create side optical tunnels, faint UV bands painted along railings or hedges to keep them flying parallel to the road instead of right into it. And for that billion bird problem, the solution is actually surprisingly simple. It's called the 2x4 rule. Any pattern you put on glass, dots, lines, you name it, just needs to have no more than 2 inches of vertical space and 4 inches of horizontal space between the elements. This breaks up the deadly reflection and tells birds, hey, there's a barrier here. But one thing is absolutely critical. These patterns have to be on the outside of the glass to work. So you can see how this all starts to build into a much smarter, more unified fix. The real power of color-form ecology is that it doesn't just solve one problem at a time. It addresses the whole optical ecosystem all at once. Let's just compare this to other things we do. You know, those giant wildlife overpasses are amazing for big animals, but they are incredibly expensive, they're just one-off solutions, and they do nothing for insects. Bird-safe glass only helps birds. Color-form ecology, though, is a network scale solution. It's pretty low cost, and it tackles the root optical problems for both insects and birds at the same time. And here's maybe the most practical part of all. This isn't about trying to get cities to fund huge new mega projects. As the source material points out, this whole approach plugs directly into existing city processes. Paving specifications, building codes, the standards for streetlights. It just becomes part of the normal upgrade cycle, which makes it incredibly easy to scale up. So where does this all take us? Well, the ultimate vision is something that sounds truly futuristic: the responsive city, a city that actively sees and manages its own optical environment. Building a city like this would involve three key steps. First, you plan using a digital twin of the city. You can simulate its optical weather to find and fix death traps before you even lay a single brick. Second, you build with smart materials, like coatings that could change how reflective they are based on the sun's angle. And third, you monitor the whole thing with AI and drones, constantly scanning for new problems and checking to see how well your solutions are working. So the end goal here is a dynamic, intelligent city, an urban environment that is constantly tweaking its own visual signals in real time to make sure it's safe for everyone who lives there, human and animal. It really all comes down to this one powerful question. It's a profound shift in perspective. What if, instead of just building for ourselves, our cities could finally learn to see the vibrant, complex, and sometimes dangerous world that exists just outside our own perception? What might be built then?